watching the MVP IT Pro podcast, the only podcast where you enter as an IT Pro and leave an MVP. And now, your hosts, Andy Syrewicze and Rob Corradini. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MVP IT Pro podcast, the only podcast where you enter an IT Pro and leave an MVP. My name's Andy Syrewicze, technical evangelist with Altero Software, and I'm joined by my partner in crime, Rob Corradini. How's it going, my friend?
Hey, how are you, Andy? What's going on?
Hey, not much. Living the dream.
I'm actually real excited to start this podcast because, we really want to help IT professionals, bringing them to the next level, really, and eventually, achieving that MVP status.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I definitely like to talk about the MVP status a little bit to give people an idea of what it is, what the MVP program is over at Microsoft. But I think first off, being this is our first episode, maybe we should introduce ourselves a little bit, just so people know, who these two talking heads are talking to them,
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Andy. You want me to go first? You go first.
I guess I'll go ahead first. We'll go in alphabetical order. Again, my name is Andy Syrewicze. I'm a technical evangelist with Altero Software, one of the sponsors of this podcast. So Altero Software is a backup vendor. We make a product called Altero VM Backup, and my role there, I act again as a technical evangelist. I kind of create content for the community to consume, like this podcast. Also act as a editor for all of the Altero blogs. We have 3 of them out there, one for Hyper-V, one for VMware, and one specifically targeted at MSPs. So I spend a lot of my time handling content, managing content, aggregating content. I guess my whole life is content. So I guess that's probably the easiest way to sum it up. And Rob, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you do for Five9?
Sure. So I work for Five9, and I am the director of product management. And essentially, I help with the strategic direction of our products. We principally make Microsoft-related products that help with the ecosystem. For example, we make a product called MDC, Manager Data Center, that kind of does offset the System Center suite. But again, we work hand in hand with Microsoft to really, build, an alternative product. We're in this day and age that Microsoft isn't an enemy. It's one of those, we can offer things that Microsoft potentially couldn't. Again, my job at Director of Product Management is, again, running through strategic direction of our product suite. Also, I sit on the Azure Security Council, where we review a lot of content that is posted to the Azure Security Center. And then again, I blog just like Andy, a lot of content around a lot of Microsoft-related topics, and some security-related topics. I think I was a little long-winded there, but let's get going, Andy.
Hey, not a problem. It's all good. So you mentioned content. Well, heck, we both mentioned content, and I think that's a good segue back into what Microsoft MVPs are. I find that a lot of IT pros out in the industry, they may not even be aware of this program. They see the designation in my signature and Microsoft MVP. What does that mean, right? Who is this guy? I get that reaction sometimes, and
you know what? You're right. And also, it also brings an instant credibility to it because, and that's actually the success of the program. That's very much accredited to that. But go ahead.
Yep, definitely. So, the way I would explain the MVP program is, it is a group of people, and it's fairly large. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know it's in the thousands.
It's over 4,000.
Yeah,
something.
It's quite a few. So that's worldwide, about over 4,000 people worldwide, and all of these people have exhibited some sort of desire, or they spend a lot of time helping the IT community in their particular areas of expertise. So like Rob and myself, we are both in what's called the Cloud and Data Center Management Group, or CDM for short. Basically, this group...
I would say all-encompassing, but go ahead.
Right. But really, this group, it really focuses on infrastructure, right? Private cloud, virtualization, storage, networking, PowerShell is another big one. It really encompasses
Azure.
that group. Yeah, exactly. And when you get assigned as an MVP into one of these groups, you're being recognized for your contributions to the community. And Rob and I, we really like to provide helpful, useful information to the IT community that kind of falls within that content area. Now, I think I've covered all the bases there, Rob. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Absolutely. I mean, you covered right nail on the head. I always mess that one up.
Yeah, no,
but but MVP is also an elected by a special group or a committee, what they call CDPs. Is that the correct term, or CDM?
So, yeah. I forget what it stands for, but that's the acronym.
And they essentially are looking through all your community activities. Are you really, reaching out to the community and making a difference? Are you really talking about your competency that you are being awarded in or are already awarded in, etc.?
All right.
That's all I have to add on that one.
Well, I think that's a good intro there to just kind of let people know what MVPs are. And again, our goal with this podcast is to provide that good quality content to our viewership with the idea that not only are we going to make you better IT pros, but maybe some of those, some of you that want to contribute back to the IT community, maybe you can also go down the path of becoming a Microsoft MVP. So
now, by the way, you can be nominated in a couple ways. They have a nomination website.
Yep.
You can nominate yourself. You can have someone else nominate you, or you can have an MVP nominate you. I think you can go through the pecking order of what probably you'd want to do. Usually you would probably, if you know an MVP or talk to one on Twitter or something like that, you could probably talk to them and potentially get them to nominate you. Andy, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
Well, we can be bribed with food as well. Just so
here we
saying.
go. Yeah, now we're going to get kicked out of the MVP program.
I redact my previous statement. That was a joke, just for the record. But no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you can be nominated in all those fashions. You can also be nominated by somebody inside of Microsoft as well. So if you have, like a TAM that you work with on a regular basis that you have a good working relationship with, and they know you're highly technical, and you're very community focused, that can be helpful. There's all kinds of different public-facing positions over at Microsoft where they could nominate you as well. So they're all options.
Absolutely, and it's all not just for IT pros, but even for SEs. I did a lot of SE functions at my previous couple companies ago when I was consulting, and I was part of a program called Virtual Technology Professionals. And essentially, because of my experience of going around, it's very similar to MVP, but it helps on the sales side. It's essentially the best of the region and on the sales side. I was actually nominated by a Microsoft employee. So again, like Andy said, there are a lot of routes you can go, and you don't just have to be an IT pro. You can even be an SE or in the sales arena.
Yep, definitely. Well, hey, I think that covers that bit of our show today. I kind of wanted to move into what I'm calling the "Don't Quit Your Day Job" section. Now that's up for debate, but that's what I'm calling it right now. So basically, my idea around this section here is, as much as we like this podcast and we love recording ourselves and providing useful information to the community, it doesn't always pay the bills, right? So that's why I'm calling it "Don't Quit Your Day Job." But basically, it's what have you been working on lately, Rob? What have I been working on lately? And I guess I'll go ahead and go first. Just kind of talk.
You go first, Andy. Yeah.
Yeah, the things that I've been working with lately. So I'll talk about what I've been working with on the Altero side lately, and that's being the editor of all three of our blogs. Part of my job is managing authors, right? And I think I owe you a blog. You do owe me a blog post, by the way.
But go ahead, Andy. We can move forward.
Right. We're just gonna move right past that, right? But we're actually onboarding authors, or at least trying to onboard authors like crazy right now. We need authors for our Hyper-V blog. We need authors for our VMware blog and our service provider focused blog as well. So if you know anyone or you're interested, feel free to let me know. But I think the last 2 days have been spent just working on that. So if I want to talk about more from a technical perspective, I've been doing a lot lately with PowerShell and Azure CLI and PowerShell as it relates to Azure IS as well. So I recently did a session for the MVP Days virtual conference. Fantastic conference, lots of great content. Highly recommend everybody check that out. I think, Rob, you did a session for that too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did one on microservices, but
yeah cool. But yeah, I mean, I kind of along the same lines, I did one on PowerShell and automating deployments of virtual machines using Hyper-V, PowerShell, and Azure IaaS. So that was a lot of fun, kind of digging into that. And
actually, I enjoyed that. And they're pre-recorded, so you can just go up there and I'm sorry, not pre-recorded, already recorded up there and live, so you can go and look at them. I think you just have to register on MVPdays.com site, and you can get access to all those recordings.
Yep, definitely. And so yeah, I've been doing a lot with PowerShell lately, and originally I was a Hyper-V MVP before they created the Cloud and Data Center Management Group, but I moonlighted. I moonlight as a PowerShell MVP. I'm not gonna say I'm a PowerShell expert, but I love working with PowerShell. Whenever I get my hands on it, it's like, oh yeah, this is really cool. Yeah, I can do this now. It's just I love working with PowerShell, and my roots are in Linux and open source, so.
That's the reason.
Yeah, the command line, it speaks to me, so it's really cool working with PowerShell on a regular basis. So, Rob, what have you been working on lately?
Wow, not as much as you. No, I have a little bit. Well, beyond my normal activities at Five9, working with our QA teams, looking at our builds, road mapping, looking at our next feature sets that we are going to be releasing. And sometimes that changes, with the landscape. So we're constantly having, different types of R&D meetings and stuff like that. Also, I spend a lot of time testing out our product, really using it in real world scenarios. I can't say enough about using a product in real world scenarios on top of real, clusters and many Hyper-V nodes, etc. Because sometimes you just don't see those issues until you get at scale or something of that nature. But my fun time has actually been on Azure. I spend a lot of time on Azure Marketplace, deploying a lot of IaaS applications, even some app web services, because they're constantly changing some of the criteria on that. Actually, right now, I'm moving my blog over to Azure, and I'm building it, from the ground up from an Ubuntu VM all the way up, just because I want complete control. It'd be nice, I'm one of those guys that like to turn the knobs, but for other people, WordPress as an app service would be cool, and a lot less maintenance on it. So that's what I've been doing lately, other than what Andy mentioned in MVP Days. I did a session on microservices, introduction to microservices, which I feel is the next generation after containerization of an application. So Let's get rolling there.
Yeah, microservices is really interesting, isn't it? That's it's amazing what can be done with that service. You think about, I look at containers, and I see what to me, containers are doing what virtualization did to physical boxes all those years ago. Now containers are doing the same thing to VMs. And now, like you said, microservices seems to be the next iteration of that, right? So, I mean, it's...
Yeah, I mean, like anything, it's a transitional technology.
Right.
I think containers is transitional. It's really on your way to really, cut down and make that a truly, structured PaaS application with lots of redundancy. Microservice is all about, one function, and you have a team that really develops that one function very well. Right. So it's great concept, but it's a journey.
Right.
And you definitely need some development dollars. But I will say that Azure definitely helps you along the way. They give you a lot of tools to really empower you, to help you with that, microservices journey, and what they call service fabric.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, cool. If I'm thinking about another thing that we've both been working on lately, we were both out at MVP Summit. What was it? Last week? Yeah, a week ago.
Yeah, a week ago. So.
Yeah, so we talked about all the MVP stuff at the beginning of the segment, and that I talk about MVP Summit, and I guess the way I would describe MVP Summit is it's a conference out in Redmond, Washington, at Microsoft HQ, specifically for the MVPs.
Which is so much fun, by the way.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Minus the food poisoning I got while I was out there.
Well, that too. That minus that. But it is a awesome summit. People coming from all over the world. You're not just meeting peers within your region or in your country. You're reading people really from all over the world, and their differences of opinion. Microsoft sometimes doesn't have localization of some apps, so you're talking sometimes around different subject lines. So with different people from different countries. So I really enjoy that a lot. I don't know, what is your impression of Summit and what you do out of it?
I think my favorite thing about Summit is sitting down with the product groups and actually talking to the product group managers for each individual piece. What I found interesting, and this was kind of a shock to me from the very first summit I ever went to, and it shouldn't be a shock, but I'll say it anyway. The people working on each individual feature or thing inside of a Microsoft product, they are like the most excited people in the world. They really are. They are super passionate. I think that's one of the very unique things about Microsoft, and you don't see that really from outside. If you're just
you're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And you don't see that excitement. So I talk to so many IT pros that blah blah Microsoft, they messed
the big gorilla. Yeah,
exactly. And the thing is behind those bugs that are being worked through, behind the support issues, there are real human beings that are super excited about the products and features that they are making for the world. And I think that's one of my favorite things, is seeing that excitement actually in front of you in that room. So that's one thing I really like. The other thing I like is seeing all the new stuff that's coming. Of course, we can't talk about it because it's stuff that hasn't been announced yet. But it's always nice to see the cool new stuff that's going to be coming out next. So it
helps us prepare, whether we're an IT pro or for someone that's a content writer, so we can prepare to do our stuff when it actually is GA'd or announced. So it's great to actually have that insight.
Definitely.
And I will say, you're right. The product management meetings are great. And even meeting some of the developers on the dev leads on some of the teams, is great. It's going to be, I think, our second episode or third, but we interviewed someone else there. And I learned a tremendous amount around browser.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was an interesting interview.
His name is Rosin, and I will say that it's something I wouldn't normally go and interview on, because we're both, Andy and I, are cloud and data center MVPs. But I will say I learned a lot about the browser market, how the browser market is shaping, and essentially the mechanics behind browsers.
Yeah, that was an eye-opening interview, so I can't wait to talk about that one, like you said, in an episode or two here.
Absolutely.
But we do have an interview lined up for this episode, actually. Good buddy of Rob, and I
one of my favorite people.
Oh yeah, so we talked to Symon Perriman while we were there at Summit. Symon is a fellow Microsoft MVP. So interesting story about Symon. So Symon is actually the person that inspired me to kind of go on this evangelist type of journey. So at the time, Symon was a IT pro evangelist for Microsoft. I remember watching I don't remember what the video was, but they were talking about... It
was probably like Windows Server with him talking.
I think it was. I think they were talking about System Center VMM, virtual machine
there you
manager.
go. There you go. Yeah.
And I remember looking at it like, that would be a really cool job to have. It'd be really cool to do that. And it's like, well, I could just start doing that for the community where I'm at right now, and so the rest is history, as they say. So it's just really cool to kind of talk to Symon in person. It's not the first time I've talked to him in person, but it's always nice seeing Symon just because of that. He was kind of the catalyst for the start of my journey there. So I guess we can cut over to the interview here, and Symon talked to us all about his journey from Microsoft to startup and everything in between. So let's take a look at that. Well, hey everyone, Andy and Rob here at MVP Summit in Redmond, Washington, and look who we ran into. We got Symon Perriman here. How's it going?
They bring anybody in.
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Good,
Not too
good.
bad.
Great.
Well, hey, for the viewers that may not know who you are, Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So my background, I joined Microsoft back in 2007 as a fresh college graduate. I joined the Hyper-V clustering team, and I was an MVP lead there, so I got to meet a lot of the community, a lot of the data center and infrastructure folk back then. As a program manager there, I was doing everything from designing new products. Specifically, I did a lot of virtualization, Hyper-V integration, all the community work, running the MVP program, presentations, and release management. So making sure that the product complied with all the requirements that you have to release with Microsoft.
How many hats was that?
That was only 3 of them. But I realized I enjoyed speaking to customers, and so after 4 years, I then transitioned to become a technical evangelist. Kind of a cool role. It sounds a little odd, the title, but it basically means technical promoter. So I get to work with customers from CEOs to IT pros to press and media, kind of all over the place. Anyone that needs to be able to clearly understand an idea and understand a complicated technology in simple terms. That was a blast. Really enjoyed doing that.
Channel 9, right?
Channel 9.
That's where I first saw Symon.
I think so. I probably connected with you guys over Channel 9.
Yeah.
And that was a blast. I thought I had one of the best jobs at Microsoft. I still think it was one of the best jobs at Microsoft.
Arguably, yes.
Yeah.
It's great when you get a big travel budget and get to travel the world on Uncle Bill's dime.
All right. Shh, don't say that too loud. We're here at Microsoft. Go ahead.
Right. I'm free from
They
that.
might be getting some of that money back.
Get in the refund. So that was a blast. And then about 3 years ago, I left Microsoft to join a partner, Five9 Software. Rob knows that well now,
yes.
But with Five9 Software, I was VP of Business Development and Marketing. So kind of running things across the board, from bringing new partnerships in place, setting up our own community program. That was a great time there. I enjoyed helping build the business, getting us a lot of international expansion during that time. But ultimately, my passion came calling, and I left about 18 months ago to go found my own business, Fanwide, which is a sports technology and data company, and it's built on Azure. So I've had a kind of a fun transition from
This is a really
product
awesome
to promotion
Really cool.
to partner and now a customer.
So it's got to be an interesting journey going from working here at Microsoft, like you said, and your partner. Now you're consuming it as a customer.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the challenges you faced during that transitionatory period?
I think probably the biggest challenge was access. Obviously when
right.
you're Microsoft, right, you have access to everything. Then as you shift to, working as a partner, you have less access, but you still have a close relationship with a partner management team, right? Things get answered quickly. Fortunately, I became an MVP as soon as possible. You have to, once you leave Microsoft, you have to wait 6 months, something like that, then you become an MVP.
Really? I didn't know that.
So I got my MVP after that, and that was able to give me pretty good access as well, as you guys know.
Right.
And then when I left being a partner and just became a customer, fortunately I still retain my MVP status, but it's a lot harder as a customer, right? You're kind of pushed away, there's more silos, more layers to get through to get that access. So access was probably the first thing. Second thing, I think, visibility within the Microsoft community, for IT pros, like everyone that's interested in this podcast, right? We are looking for ways to, get that brand awareness and visibility.
Yeah.
And, being a partner, you get so much access. You get all the programs, early access, pre-NDA, things like that. And so transitioning to a customer, it kind of pushes you a little further away from that.
Right.
I see. So on that subject, tell us a little bit more about Fanwide, because it's a very interesting endeavor, what it's about and how it works, and even beyond what on the face of Fanwide, it kind of even goes further into some Azure stuff. Please, I would like to know.
Yeah, sure. So at a high level, Fanwide is a social network and data platform for sports fan clubs. We've built what we believe is the largest database of fan clubs. You can use our free app, tell us what your favorite team is, and we show you where a local meetup or watch party is for any team in any city.
All right, Patriots.
So you got the Patriots?
Oh yeah, they're all over the place here.
They
I'm in
are.
Seahawks country.
Right.
So I'm a passionate sports fan. I've been a work transplant. I've been an immigrant. My dad was in the military. I've traveled as a student. And I constantly travel for work, so I'm kind of an ideal customer for a displaced sports fan.
Right.
And so I wanted to make it easy for someone that's out of market from their favorite team to go find that community, find that home.
Yeah, it's an interesting
awesome.
premise, yeah.
Sports, it really transcends where you're born, where you're raised, the language you speak, your race, ethnicity, right? If you're fans of the same sports team, you see someone in the street, you high five them, and you immediately become
Exactly,
friends.
That's true.
And so I wanted to kind of bring that sense of connection to everybody for every team in every city.
That's nice.
Wow.
That's nice. I can see that especially useful for maybe franchises that don't do the best all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna pick on my own. I'm from Michigan.
Okay.
And I've been a Lions fan
So
forever
you've had some ups
ever.
and downs. Yep, a lot of downs. some
Mostly
downs.
downs.
Yeah.
Mostly downs. One of the 2 teams in the NFL have never had a Super Bowl. Anyway, but I mean, while we're diehard fans over there, you come over here and I'm walking down the hall with a Lions shirt on yesterday, and everyone's like, "Really?
Right.
Really?"
Right.
So I mean, like you said, being displaced from where you're originally from for whatever reason, a job or traveling, it's nice to have that option to be like, okay, where can I go watch my team today? I think
And
that's
not
a
be
really
made
cool.
fun of.
Exactly, right.
Not be hated on.
Right.
That's a big part of it, right? You
And I
want to
think
feel
that's
at home.
yeah, and I think that's a really interesting concept. It's really cool what you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you. So that's kind of the customer side of the business. We make money from bars and restaurants that pay us to organize events for them.
Wow.
From teams, from sponsors that promote the events.
Wow.
But really long term, in the way we use Azure, is all around the data that we're collecting.
Right.
Huh.
We're kind of a social network, and if you think about it, right, social networks, the value is the data that they have on the people.
Right.
Absolutely.
So when we first launched the business, I was the initial architect. 2 other former Microsoft employees are our engineering leads, our head of engineering and our head of product. And so, we looked at different options and said, let's go build this in the cloud for a lot of reasons, right? So as a new company, we have one of those traditional decision points in the beginning. Do we do on-premise? Do we go to the cloud? And so for us, being a startup, we didn't, we can't go and buy our own infrastructure. We can't drop hundreds of thousands on
Right.
hardware, right?
That's
So the
what
cloud
Azure's
was-
for.
Right.
Cloud was
Very
an easy
Azure.
decision for us. So we started out, hosting everything on Azure Web Services for the basic website. We use some Azure SQL DB. We use MongoDB running in an Azure VM for our data layer. Azure Service Bus to connect things. Azure Security Center. So it's been very fun, learning about promoting these products for several years.
Right.
Yeah.
And then okay, now I'm actually going to use them.
Right.
In real world, in production. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it puts you in kind of a unique position because you know why some of the things are the way they are, and obviously you know the best practices from being here during that time, and it's really amazing what Azure can do when best practices are followed and it's used from the get-go.
I mean, joking aside, right? Everyone's like, cloud consumption, it's a better model, it saves you money. It really does. It was the right decision that we made, and we genuinely believe that. And being a startup, one of the nice programs that Microsoft offers is called BizSpark.
Right.
It's kind of an accelerator for startups. We joined that, and they provide us with free Azure credits.
Wow.
We get several $100s of Azure credits every month. Access to Visual Studio Team Foundation server. So we built our code on Microsoft Stack as well, right?
Nice.
So we're Microsoft Stack end to end,
Right.
from development, ops, management, and usage data, everything like that. Because again, the integration story, it's something that I used to preach. It's true, right? If you can really follow Microsoft across the stack, including the developers and integrating their tools, it's really efficient.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yep.
Right. Well, you mentioned something earlier about the Microsoft Sports Data Platform. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
I can tell you a little. It's fairly new, but Microsoft has started to invest in sports. I think it's a great investment because sports are one of the products, one of the industries that really doesn't fluctuate based on just the economics of the world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Even when we're in a recession, people sometimes watch even more sports.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
So, being in a recession-proof business is interested to Microsoft, and so they've recently announced the Sports Data Platform. It's going to be an Azure SaaS offering, software as a service, and essentially it's collecting and aggregating lots of data about athletes, about teams. In our case, we're providing data about fan clubs, and then other organizations can subscribe to that data and put it inside their own products.
Nice.
So I'll give you an example of kind of what we're doing.
Yeah,
we have
I understand a use case. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a large events database. In the past 18 months, we promoted almost 500,000 events for all these different teams all around the country. So, lots of scale, lots of automation, lots of efficiency. And as part of doing that, we've put together this huge database of every watch party, again, for every team all around the country. So we now provide access to that event feed Oh, sorry, I should say we're in the process of hooking into this.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We'll be providing access to the events feed. So if a local events company wants to publish our events, if a team wants to integrate it within their app, within their website, they'll be able to basically suck our events with an API.
Right.
We make money on that, and then they can go and inject our information and our products within their own services, their own website or app.
Wow.
So that gives us access to a lot of customers. You know, we're providing this ourselves independently, but the challenge of doing this through our own platform is we have to set up the high availability, the monitoring, the metering, the billing.
Right.
Whereas if we plug directly into the sports data platform, Microsoft handles that organizational piece, the
Okay.
administrative piece.
Purely as
for
a
us.
Nice.
SaaS service.
Purely as a SaaS service. The second big advantage of that is, of course, you know, Microsoft, they're better known than Fanwide, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
So they already have relationships with so many of the top teams and clubs around
Right.
the world.
Right.
You know, I do a lot of partnerships with Real Madrid. So we're working with their own, what's called the Global Sports Innovation Center. Microsoft built this sports tech hub in Madrid. You know, they fund it, they sponsor it, so we're working closely with them, but that provides us with access to some of the world's top teams as well.
Yeah.
That, you know, Microsoft is able to essentially act as our proxy, as our agent, rather than Fanwide having to try to do that ourselves.
Wow.
So we're pretty excited about this.
Yeah.
You know, it's still in its infancy. It's still under development, but we'll hopefully be one of the first companies that is done to provide that data there.
Nice.
I actually hope that this is where I want to see a super Azure success case and a case
Yeah.
study written.
There you go.
Yeah, definitely. There you go. That's a good use case for it, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Simon, what's next?
Well, this is now. So I've been still doing, right, everybody says, right, doing a startup's a marathon, not a sprint. Well, I've been sprinting for 2 years.
Alright.
I'm exhausted. We're expecting our funding to be coming in at the end of this quarter, which is exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank
yes.
you. We're closing our Series A round.
Okay.
And that's going to really unlock a lot of things. We're going to be growing our sales and marketing teams. We're going to be doing a lot of events around the World Cup that's coming up this summer.
Oh, yeah.
Our
That's
goal
great.
is to have, for the 32 World Cup teams, we want to have a watch party for every team in all the major cities around the country.
Really
So
cool.
even if you're a fan of Iceland or Morocco, we'll hopefully find a place where you can get together with
Right.
that local community
That's awesome.
and cheer on your team through the World Cup.
Nice. That's a venue that lends itself really well to, to Fanwide and just the greater idea of your app,
Yeah, I mean, it's just a great way to bring people together, right? I've always been about communities, whether that's from my Microsoft days with the MVPs to I build communities now for a living.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
fantastic.
Really cool.
Well,
I think that about wraps it up for us, doesn't
yes,
it? Is there anything else
absolutely.
you
We don't want to
cover?
hold up Simon too long because we have a little fan club over here. But Simon, we really want to thank you for joining
Yeah,
us.
absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
And as always, it's always a pleasure. We're going to constantly watch you, but if anybody wants to find out about Fanwide or check it out, it's fanwide.com.
FANWIDE.com, and feel free to email me, Simon@fanwide.com. Simon with a Y.
And then you got his Twitter handle, I can't remember, but you find him.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on
Not
the
a
show,
problem.
guys. Appreciate
Definitely,
it.
thank you.
I'm Andy. I'm sorry, I'm Rob.
And thank you to everyone who's watching. See you later.
Well, hey Rob, we're back. That was a fantastic interview. I really enjoyed talking with Simon there. I know you did too. He's got a really interesting story, doesn't he?
The story is just amazing. I think Simon's done a little bit of everything.
He sure has. What I found most interesting was how he went from, working at Microsoft to partner and then to, end user consumer of Microsoft services, right? That's typically it's the other way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
From a professional point of view. So it's interesting to see him go the other way. He's
going into this whole sports data analytics platform
Yeah,
on Azure.
I was never aware that was even a thing. That's the first time I had ever heard about that, and that's a really interesting concept. And I think I look at that, and I look at some of the stuff that Microsoft's doing around health and medical as well. And I mean, they're really starting to branch out into some areas that can really empower people to do amazing things, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because he was elaborating on a lot of what that data can do.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So
sure is. Well, hey, should we wrap things up? I
think we should wrap things up. I think we've done a lot of talking today, and you get a little bit of extra of what we are. But so you can reach us. And by the way, we tend to be very verbal on Twitter. So if you want to go out there and have a question out there for us, or even call us out on something from a show, definitely hit us on Twitter.
Yep.
You can also reach us on YouTube for MVPITPro, and also on Facebook. Andy, what's our next interview going to be with?
So our next interview, I think we were talking to VJ, right? We're going to do VJ's interview. VJ Tiwari, and he is the what's his title? He's a program manager with the Azure Stack team, but I don't remember what his official title is.
I'll have to look exactly, but he's a program manager for the Azure Stack team. And what's great is he's explaining where Azure Stack is going, what Azure Stack really is about, and a lot of interesting facts about that I didn't realize around Azure Stack when you're placing it, to an on-premise environment.
Yeah, so that's going to be a good one. We'll definitely be sure to elaborate that in the next episode. And hey Rob, it's been great talking. Really look forward to doing the next one. And hey everyone who's watching, I want to say thanks for watching our very first episode of the MVP IT Pro podcast. Again, hopefully you've come in an IT Pro today and you're leaving an MVP. Hopefully, and remember, like I said, we can be bribed with food. If you'd like us to nominate you. No, I shouldn't do that.
Nice.
I couldn't. I haven't had lunch yet. That might be part of the problem. I have food on the brain here, so.
That might be it, but I will see.
Maybe.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for coming. Andy and I really enjoy doing this, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for watching, everyone. And be sure to look us up on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Have a great day.